On this day in history, November 5th. The Catholicon, written by Johann Lagaduc in Trag'e in 1464, was published on November 5, 1499. This groundbreaking work represented the first Breton dictionary ever created. It also held the distinction of being the first French dictionary ever published. Guy Fawkes was arrested in the cellars of the Houses of Parliament on November 5, 1605, where he had hidden gunpowder in an attempt to assassinate King James I of England. This foiled plot, known as the Gunpowder Plot, aimed to blow up the Parliament building with the king inside. The event is still commemorated annually in Britain as Guy Fawkes Night or Bonfire Night. Frederick the Great achieved a significant victory during the 7 Years' War on November 5, 1757, defeating the combined forces of France and the Holy Roman Empire at the Battle of Rossbach. Despite being outnumbered, Frederick's Prussian army demonstrated superior tactics and discipline. The battle became one of the most celebrated victories in Prussian military history. The Treaty of Fort Stanwix was signed on November 5, 1768, establishing new boundaries between Indian lands and white settlements in the 13 colonies. The treaty modified the frontier line previously set by the Royal Proclamation of 1763. This agreement would have lasting implications for Native American colonial relations. French-American forces suffered a significant defeat on November 5, 1780, when Miami Chief Little Turtle's warriors overcame Colonel LeBaum's expedition. The battle demonstrated the military prowess of Native American forces during the American Revolution. This victory helped establish Little Turtle's reputation as a skilled military leader. A tragic episode in American history unfolded on November 5, 1862, when 303 Dakota warriors were convicted of rape and murder of white settlers in Minnesota. Though all were sentenced to death, President Lincoln commuted most of the sentences. Ultimately, 38 warriors were hanged in what remains the largest mass execution in U.S. history. Susan B. Anthony made a bold stand for women's suffrage on November 5, 1872, by illegally casting a vote in the presidential election. She was subsequently arrested and fined $100 for her act of civil disobedience. Anthony refused to pay the fine, though it was never collected. A dark chapter in New Zealand's history occurred on November 5, 1881, when 1,600 armed volunteers and constabulary forces invaded the peaceful Maori settlement at Parihaka. Led by Minister of Native Affairs John Bryce, the forces evicted over 2,000 residents and destroyed the settlement. This event became a symbol of colonial injustice and land confiscation in New Zealand. The first U.S. patent for an automobile was granted to George B. Selden on November 5, 1895. This patent would have significant implications for the early automotive industry. The patent's validity was later challenged by Henry Ford in a landmark legal battle. The Republic of Negroes was established on November 5, 1898, when Negrese nationalists revolted against Spanish colonial rule. This independent state, though short-lived, represented a significant moment in Filipino resistance to colonial power. The Republic demonstrated the growing nationalist sentiment in the Philippines during this period. The Kingdom of Poland was proclaimed on November 5, 1916, through the Act of the 5th of November, issued by the Emperors of Germany and Austria-Hungary. This proclamation represented an attempt by the Central Powers to gain Polish support during World War I. The kingdom would exist as a puppet state until the end of the war. The Everett Massacre occurred on November 5, 1916, in Everett, Washington, when political tensions erupted into violence between industrial workers of the World Organizers and local police. The confrontation resulted in multiple deaths and injuries. This event became a significant moment in American labor history. Lenin issued his call for the October Revolution on November 5, 1917, setting in motion events that would transform Russia. This call to action mobilized Bolshevik forces for their upcoming seizure of power. The revolution would fundamentally alter the course of world history. Sidney Riley, known as the first super spy of the 20th century, was executed by the Soviet Union's secret police, OGPU, on November 5, 1925. Riley had conducted numerous espionage operations against the Soviet regime. His exploits later inspired Ian Fleming's James Bond character. Franklin D. Roosevelt made history on November 5, 1940, by becoming the first and only U.S. president to be elected to a third term. This unprecedented victory broke the two-term tradition established by George Washington. Roosevelt would go on to win a fourth term as well. British and Australian forces from the 27th British Commonwealth Brigade achieved a crucial victory on November 5, 1950, when they stopped the advance of the Chinese 117th Division during the Battle of Pak Shan. This engagement represented a significant moment in the Korean War. The successful defense helped prevent a broader Chinese breakthrough. The Vienna State Opera reopened on November 5, 1955, with a performance of Beethoven's Fidelio after being destroyed in World War II. The reconstruction of this cultural landmark symbolized Austria's post-war recovery. The reopening marked a return to normalcy for Vienna's artistic community. British and French paratroopers landed in Egypt on November 5, 1956, following a week of intensive bombing. This military action was part of the controversial Suez Crisis. The intervention would have significant international repercussions and mark the decline of British and French influence in the region. The Military Assistance Command in Vietnam reported the lowest weekly American soldier death toll in 5 years on November 5, 1970. This reduction in casualties reflected changing dynamics in the conflict. The report came during a period of Vietnamization of the war. 3 U.S. Navy ships, USS Rents, USS Reeves, and USS Oldendorf, made history on November 5, 1986, by visiting Qingdao, China. This marked the first U.S. naval visit to China since 1949. The port call represented a significant moment in improving U.S.-China relations. Pakistani President Farooq Leghari took dramatic action on November 5, 1996, by dismissing Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto's government and dissolving the National Assembly. This political crisis marked a turbulent period in Pakistani democracy. The dismissal was based on allegations of corruption and mismanagement. Chang'e 1 was China's first lunar probe, launched on October 24, 2007, marking the country's first step into lunar exploration. The spacecraft conducted a comprehensive mapping of the moon's surface, creating 3D images, analyzing the distribution of elements, and measuring the thickness of lunar soil during its 16-month mission. After completing its objectives, Chang'e 1 was deliberately crashed into the moon's surface on March 1, 2009, paving the way for China's subsequent lunar missions like Chang'e 2 through Chang'e 5. On November 5, 2007, Google unveiled Android as an open-source mobile operating system. Developed in secret since their 2005 acquisition of Android Inc., this announcement, made alongside the newly formed Open Handset Alliance, laid the groundwork for Android to become the world's dominant mobile platform. While the platform was announced in 2007, the first commercial Android device wouldn't be released until the following year with the HTC Dream T-Mobile G1. A tragic mass shooting occurred at Fort Hood, Texas on November 5, 2009, when U.S. Army Major Nidal Hasan killed 13 people and wounded 32 others. This became the deadliest mass shooting at a U.S. military installation. The incident raised questions about military security and radicalization. India launched its first interplanetary probe, the Mars Orbiter mission, on November 5, 2013. This historic mission made India the first Asian nation to reach Mars orbit. The success demonstrated India's growing capabilities in space exploration. The Astroworld Festival tragedy unfolded on November 5, 2021, when a devastating crowd crush resulted in 10 deaths and 25 hospitalizations. The incident occurred during rapper Travis Scott's performance at the Houston Music Festival. This tragedy led to numerous investigations and discussions about concert safety protocols. Thank you most sincerely for your time and attention. If you found this presentation enlightening, I encourage you to share it with others, express your appreciation with a like, and consider subscribing for future content. I look forward to your company in the next installment.